The Summer of Broken Rules, Chapter 2, Part 1. My cousin was getting married. Sarah Jane Fox and Michael Philippe Dupre set to wed on Saturday the 16th of July at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at St. Andrew's Church in Edgartown. Dinner and dancing to follow at Pacwa Farm. Pacwa Farm, or the farm as we called it, had been in the Fox family since before World War I. It was no longer a working farm, but a sprawling 600 acres between Edgartown and Tisbury, with a mile of private beach. For hours we would get bounced around by the ocean waves and then blissfully float in the vineyard's famous lakes and ponds. Claire and my favorite had always been the secluded Pacwa Pond. I hugged a wriggling Loki close as Dad sped up Pacwa's 3-mile sandy dirt road, leaving dust in our wake. "Dad, slower," I said from the back seat, but he was too busy laughing. The road's unofficial speed limit was 25 miles per hour, but everyone loved bending that rule. "We raced back in the day," Uncle Brad would sometimes say, clapping my dad on the shoulder. "Oh, how we flew!" It used to be fun breaking the rules, but now my gut was twisting and I leaned forward to see the speedometer, a little under 50. "Please, Dad," I repeated shrilly this time. My heart pounded. "Slow down." Mom put a hand on my dad's arm. "Tom," she said quietly. My stomach settled when he hit the brakes, the speedometer immediately dropping to 20. Soon we reached the fork in the road, where a tall wooden sign steadfastly stood year after year. It finally had a fresh white paint job, definitely Aunt Christine's doing, and pointed out the direction of each summer house. There were 8 of them, scattered across the farm, no two alike. Some were bigger, some smaller, all rustic with their own names and character. Most of the wedding guests were staying out here, so I knew every house would be filled to capacity, maybe more. As Uncle Brad had told my dad about some people pitching tents. Dad veered left, and a few minutes later the Raptor's wheels crunched onto the annex's gravel driveway. Well, parking spot. The rest of the houses had driveways, but the annex just had a parking spot. It was a cottage, only 1 story and cedar-sided with a pitched roof, and it was considered ours whenever we were on the vineyard. We usually rented it for 3 weeks, and the rest of the summer it saw a series of extended family and friends. 2 green Adirondack chairs sat on the tiny weathered deck, overlooking the big green fields speckled with yellow flowers. The tall grass and scrub trees swayed in the breeze, and in the distance I could hear the ocean washing up on the beach. "We're here," I thought, nobody wanting to break into a dance. "We're here, we're here, we're here." Through the screen door was the sitting room, with a braided rug covering the worn oak floor and a faded green and white striped love seat facing the small TV positioned in between the 2 front windows. Books upon books had been crammed into both bookcases, and photographs covered the bedboard walls, including some really old black and white ones. Decades and decades of boxes and our friends. The tight hallway was flanked by the galley kitchen on one side, and my parents' room on the other. Straight ahead was Claire's and my room. The bunk room was roughly the size of a ship's sleeping quarters. So many nights Claire had accidentally woken me by rolling over and bronco kicking the wall. "Sorry, Mary," she'd say in a sleep-slurred voice. I bit my lip and pushed open our bedroom door to see that nothing was out of place, that nothing had changed. There was the light blue dresser with the sea glass and wampum-framed mirror above it, along with the Pacwa map my sister and I had drawn when we were younger. After so many scavenger hunts and games of manhunt, the 2 of us had learned every inch of the farm. A white wicker nightstand stood next to the bunk beds, matching their white coverlets. Claire was afraid of heights, so she always slept on the bottom with me on top. The ladder had broken long ago and was never replaced, but I had a special talent for scrambling up the side. After unpacking my duffel and hanging up my dress for the wedding, safe in a garment bag, I heard the annex's door swing open and shut. Anyone home? Mom and Dad were outside, unloading the last of our stuff in the car, but I called back a hello and bounded into the sitting room, only to trip over the rug once I got there. My heart stopped when I saw Claire standing there and smiling at me. But no, it wasn't Claire. The corners of my eyes started to sting as my cousin said my name, because while Claire and I looked nothing alike, she and Sarah were nearly identical twins. The same cascading auburn hair and slenderness, the same love of being barefoot, even the same tilt of the head when they smiled. It was only when I noticed the pink and green Lily Pulitzer shirt, dress, and pearl earrings that I finally realized Sarah. This was Sarah. Hi, I said, my voice quavering a little, but I surged forward and let the bride hug me tight. It had been so long since I'd seen her, months and months. Uncle Brad, Aunt Christine, Sarah, and her brothers were from Maryland and spent every summer on the vineyard, living in Lantern House. If you looked up Preppy in an encyclopedia, their family Christmas card would be right beside it. Now, Sarah was 26, and after graduating from Tulane a few years ago, she worked for New Orleans Preservation Society. How are things? She asked after pulling away, giving me a look through her horn-rimmed glasses. Like Claire, Sarah loved interesting glasses, but this pair was a little too big. I watched her push them up her nose, which drew attention to the sharp scar across her forehead, running from her hairline all the way down past her right temple, straight and thin for the most part, but with one jagged zigzag above her left eyebrow. From the shattered glass, from that awful night 2 winters ago. I blinked. How are you doing? She asked again. Ben. I knew she was talking about Ben, because without Claire's shoulder to cry on, I'd called Sarah the morning after his grad party. He said he would still come. I hiccuped over the line. If I wanted him to. Wait, what? She said. He said what now? Doubt he was ending things but still wanted to come? Uh-huh. Oh, geez, Mayor, Sarah sighed. I'm sorry. What a dick. Please tell me you said no. But I said I was bringing a date, I blubbered. On your invitation, I told you I had a +1. I need a +1. No, you don't, Sarah said. You absolutely don't. One onion fillet or whatever he requested isn't going to make or break the wedding. Now I gave my cousin a smirk. Well, he texted me earlier, I said, folding my arms over my chest, and I straight up called him a shithead. Sarah gasped. You didn't. I grinned. I did. I'd been crying at the time, but technically I had. Yes, she grinned back. Go, Mare, assert yourself. My smile slipped. Assert yourself. Claire had loved that phrase. I know I'm on the sidelines here, I remembered her once saying, but it seems like you need to stand up to Ben more. She shrugged. If you don't want to go to the party, tell him that. Assert yourself. It was always about Ben, I was beginning to realize. Our relationship was uneven, never about me. Everything revolved around him. Claire had seen it, but I hadn't listened. She doesn't have a boyfriend. She's never had a boyfriend, I'd tell myself as I pulled on jeans and cute tops and curled my hair and applied eyeliner. She doesn't get it. She's wrong. Sarah! My parents appeared in the sitting room. The cozy space was now even cozier with 4 of us in it. The most people we'd ever squeezed in here was 10. We thought we heard your voice. Aunt Liz! Sarah gave them both hugs. Uncle Tom! Welcome! You look beautiful, my mom said as I noticed her eyes land on Sarah's scar. My heart dipped. Part of me suspected she couldn't really tell how well it had healed. Instead, still seeing all the stitches, neat and clean, but also grisly and brutal. I hadn't seen them in person like my parents, only in pictures, but there had been so many. I worried my mom would always be haunted by them. You're radiating that bride-to-be glow. Sarah smiled. I just came by to say hello, she said, then turned to my dad, and to tell you that the outhouse is fully stocked. Charmin? My dad asked. She nodded seriously. Of course. Everyone chuckled. Another one of the annex's quirks was it had no bathroom. All the houses on the farm had outdoor showers, heavenly after a long day on the beach, but our cottage had no bathroom, period. You had to follow a well-worn dirt trail several yards into the woods, where a tall wooden structure waited at the end, a quest that was especially daunting in the middle of the night. Well, I jokingly clapped my hands together and started backing toward the screen door. I wanted to hear my mom laugh again. On that note, if you'll excuse me a moment, Sarah told us there was a cookout planned for that night to officially welcome everyone. But once she left, I dug one of the beach cruisers out of the annex's storage shed, pumped air into its tires, and pedaled off to do some casual recon. Just down the road was the cabin, covered in rust-colored wooden siding and built like an old motel, T-shaped with each bedroom door leading out onto the front porch. I slowed a little when I saw a few cars parked haphazardly at the side of the house, their trunks still popped open, along with a handful of guys sitting around the front yard's huge fire pit. Michael's groomsmen. I spotted the groom among them, a can of beer resting on his knee as he used his arms to reenact some story for everyone. Even from afar, it was impossible to ignore how handsome Michael was. Built like a quarterback with deep bronze skin, dark hair that Sarah was always running her hands through, and the smoothest southern accent. He and my cousin had met at Tulane, but Michael had lived in New Orleans his whole life. His family had Creole roots, French and African ancestry. A die-hard football fan, Michael now worked in the Saints front office. Michael spotted me too, and raised his hand in a wave, but right then, a guy burst out the cabin's main door. "Why isn't there more ice in the freezer?" he asked as everyone turned. His face is getting worse. Seriously a mess. Looks like he went a couple rounds in the ring. Well, good luck with that, I thought, whatever it was. I'd talk to Michael tonight. I gripped my handlebars and resumed pedaling, upping my speed, and then coasting until I turned onto the road that led straight to the big house. The big house was not Papa's largest house, but it was the oldest, a Victorian farmhouse with cedar shingles and faded green shutters. It was the only house that wasn't rented each summer, since Wink and Honey, my grandparents, lived there full time. Now they were on the big house's slightly sagging front porch, Honey serenely swinging in the hammock, and Wink leaning against one of the columns, tracking me through his ancient binoculars. For bird watching, he always said, but I knew my grandfather liked keeping an eye on farm activity. The big house's porch was a perfect spy base. It wrapped around the entire house, so you could see everything. "Anything good happening?" I asked after hitting my kickstand. "Julie and Rachel just arrived at the camp," Wink replied, still scanning the horizon. "It appears Ethan is having a tantrum, and Hannah must really be enjoying her ballet class. She's wearing a pink tutu." I laughed. Aunt Julia was my dad's younger sister. She and her wife Rachel had 2 kids, 6-year-old Ethan and 4-year-old Hannah. Aunt Rachel was very pregnant with her 3rd child, a boy. She was due sometime next month. "Come sit by me, sweetie," Honey said, and patted the spot next to her in the hammock. She put her arm around me once I was all settled in, her lavender scent so familiar. I thought my grandmother was one of the most beautiful women in the world, with her long white hair, blue eyes, light linen tunics, and chunky necklaces to add pops of color. She designed and beaded them herself, and they were always in high demand at jewelry stores around the island. "It seems like everyone's here," I commented. I passed Michael and his groomsmen outside the cabin. Wink put down his binoculars. "Yes, he stopped by earlier to promise they wouldn't trash the place." Honey laughed. "I do so adore that boy." I smiled. My grandmother's crush on Michael was no secret. "Where's his family staying?"